Today, the day 10, part 2 from CCNA, talking about Telnet. So, when you have any Cisco devices or any non-Cisco devices to configure, there must be console port and console cable to configure it in the very beginning. And we generally use a software called PuTTY. So here you're going to mention about what type of protocol that you need, and you will be connected to. But keep in mind, when you have a new box, when you're configuring from the initial stage, you will never get a chance to configure the box always from by connecting to the console cable. So initially, when you connect any device, and while you're configuring it, later, in order to maintain or in order to manage, either by you or the end customer IT department people, they have to access your configured device from remotely. So here you have, let's say, this is your data center room, which you are allowing from the door in the very initial. Okay, and here you have a rack or data center, or you can call MDF, and here you have a rack 1. In the rack 1, you connected one switch, and initially technicians will go in and mount the switch, and you as an engineer allowed you to go inside the data center, and you connect from your laptop to the console cable, and you started the configuration. Okay, once the device has been alive and there is a punching system, and this data center at the customer side having the IT room where the IT desk people are sitting here. If later, if these people from the local IT people wants to check something on the switch, or if they couldn't and they are asking you to come as a support, and when you enter to the company, they generally never allow you to go into the data center because they have multiple products of different vendors, different companies, etc. And there will be huge cable running behind, so they will never allow you to go and touch the box. Instead, they will ask you to log in from their desk. Maybe they will give you a one data port to you, and they ask you to sit in the cabin and connect your laptop, or they will tell you do not connect your own product. We will connect our own, because of a security reason. They're going to connect their own product, and they will allow you to log in and check it. So you are sitting by physically here, or the local admin from the company sitting here, and they're asking your assistant to move on, and they wanted to connect from here to there. Let's say this cable, which is called structure cabling, which is coming from behind the building somewhere and all, and it's connected to the office. I mean, to the data center. And shortly, when they are sitting here, they wanted to access your devices from remotely. How will they get a connection if the device is far away? There we have a topic called Telnet and SSH. Both are same function. Telnet port number 23 from TCP, SSH port number 22 from TCP. The difference, Telnet is unsecured and SSH is more secure, but both functions are same. So let's say you have a switch here, okay, and the user is connected here. Initially, you will come and configure it. Later, this user can access this switch without connecting to the console cable. I mean, from a network. Network, they can connect it. So what need a minimum to connect it? So here in this switch, which device that you wanted to access remotely, you need to do some set of commands. Even if I have a trunk connection to another switch, and this is in ground floor, and this is in first floor, initially you need to go everywhere to configure it. Later on, if you are a local IT sitting here, he does not need to go to the first floor to access this switch. He can sit here and he can access this switch. He can access this switch. On he can access any network devices which is reachable from his side. In order to do that, you need to have a minimum configuration on each device. If this IT guy wants to access this switch from here in order to check or do changes or do modify, edit any configuration or check the health status, many stuff, logs, etc., here there are some set of commands which comes under telnet. സംഭവത്തിലുള്ളൂ ആദ്യം നമ്മളൊരു ഡിവൈസിൽ മാനുവലി ലോഗിൻ ചെയ്തിട്ട് അതിനകത്തിട്ട് നമ്മൾ കുറെ കാര്യങ്ങൾ കൺസോൾ കേബിൾ കണക്ട് ചെയ്തിട്ട് ചെയ്യും. പക്ഷെ എപ്പോഴും അങ്ങനെ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റിക്കൊള്ളണമെന്നില്ല. ലേറ്റർ എന്തെങ്കിലും ഒരു മാറ്റങ്ങൾ വരുത്തണമെങ്കിൽ നമുക്ക് ഇവിടെ ഇരുന്നു കൊണ്ട് തന്നെ ആ ഡിവൈസിനെ ആക്സസ് ചെയ്യാം. നമുക്ക് നെറ്റ്വർക്ക് റീച്ചബിലിറ്റി ഉണ്ടായാൽ മതി. അങ്ങനെ ഒരു ഡിവൈസിനെ നമുക്ക് നമ്മുടെ സിസ്റ്റത്തിൽ ഇരുന്ന് ആക്സസ് ചെയ്യണമെങ്കിൽ ആ ഡിവൈസിൽ നമ്മൾ കുറച്ച് കോൺഫിഗർ ചെയ്യണം. ആ കോൺഫിഗറേഷൻ ആണ് ടെൽനെറ്റ് കോൺഫിഗറേഷൻ. ഓക്കെ, സോ ഹിയർ if you look into our scenario, let's say what is our design. Yeah, this is our design. Okay, let me show it to you. Yeah, this is our design. Here you can see you need to access the switch 1 from this system. As of now, in order to access this switch, you need to access via console cable. In order to access from this system to this switch to configure or test the configuration, you need a telnet configuration on this switch. So what is the minimum command to run the telnet configuration? So telnet configuration. Terminal emulator is the full form of telnet, which is telnet port number 23. So you are in switch, or let's say switch name is CML. Core switch 1. You're going to give a command called enable config t. From there, when a PC or when any edge device is trying to access the specific device via telnet, which port is need to allow? The port is called VTY port, virtual teletype, VTY. Line VTY, it depends on the switch model. There could be many more ports. So generally, we're going to use port number 0 to 5 or 0 to 4, which is 5 ports. Which means if of any of the edge user or any of the one user is trying to access this device, they allow port number 0. The second user will allow port number 1. Likewise, we can access that device up to 5 people at the same time. Line VTY04, then we need to give a password. If the password is the command, you need to give a password. And what is the password? Let's say, for example, I'm going to give a password, let's say Cisco, anything. Then you need to enable it, so you need to give a log. So line VTY04, you can give any number from 0. Then you need to define password. Any password, you can give your name or someone name, etc. Then you need to give a command called login. Okay, and from edge devices, let's for example from system, from the CMD, you're going to give a command called telnet space IP of this let's say switch. So this system belongs to 192.168.10.1. So you need to define the gateway in the system, which we already defined as 10.254. And you must need an IP in the switch in terms of VLAN, and the IP address is called 10.254. So let's say this switch connected to a system which is 192.168.10. Under VLAN. In order to access from this switch, this system, to this switch in terms of telnet, it need a interface. Therefore, we already defined here interface VLAN 10 IP 192.168.10.25. That IP address we already defined here as the gateway in the system 192.168.10.25. So in this switch, I'm going to configure line VTY04, password Cisco, login. Then I need to give enable password because the telnet will allow until to reach the privilege mode. Then I need to give an enable password. I'll show you how it is. Password, let's say different password, for example, CCNA. Now from the system, from PC1, what do? I'm going to access from telnet. From command prompt, I'm going to give telnet space IP of the switch, which is in the same range as a gateway. Telnet space 192.168.10.25. The moment I enter, it will ask the password. The password is, I need to put the password. This password is nothing but this password. Let's say password this. The moment I put the password, it will enter to user mode. Then I need to put enable. The moment I put enable, in order to reach the privilege mode, they're going to ask the enable password. So I need to set the enable password. So let's see, we're going to check in the switch. So this is my switch 1. Okay. Enable. I already set the enable password. So let me go and remove the password. No enable password. Anything to remove, you need to give a note. Let's say we do from the beginning, line VTY04, password Cisco, login, exit, do right. Now I set the password into the switch and I have IP address already. If you look into the show IP address interface brief, you can see under the VLAN 10 system, you have IP called 10.254. Now you go back, check to any system which belongs to 10 networks, you need to give a IP 10.254. If you try from 20 system, you need to give an IP of 20.254. That is the general scenario. Let's say, for example, IP config ping 192.168.10.25. This is called ping. I need to give telnet. Telnet. See, it's going to ask him the password. The password is called Cisco. Now it reached to enable. I mean, user mode. Now I need to give enable command. So here it says enable, no password. Therefore, I need to set enable password. Where is my switch? Yeah. I need to set enable password. Let's say CCNA. Do right. Do right. Do show run. Now you can see in the show run command. Now you can see the password is sorry. Enable password is CCNA. And if you come down on the very bottom, you can see the VTY login. Now going back to the system, we'll try with enable CCNA. See, you are in PC1, but you can access the switch. So run. Here, even I'll try from system from 20. PC4, which is 20. Let's say telnet 192.168.20.25. Yes, password is Cisco enable CCN. Okay. Now I tried from 2 systems. Okay. If you're going back to the switch, show line. Here you can see you have allowed it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because 0 to 4. 5 ports is allowed it. Currently, two system is connected. This 132, 133 these are logical ports generated by automatically. This 0, which is you connected via directly within this router. Okay. Now, let me connect 3 more systems. Let's see what is next. Okay. Example, let me try with connecting to these 2 and one of this. So let's say I'm going to connect to the PC2, PC2, desktop, command prompt, Telnet 192.168.10.254, Cisco, enable CCNA. Now, altogether I connected 3 systems, which you can see. Now here you can see only 2. Okay, now let me show again. Now you can see 3. This is directly connected. Do not count this. Now I connected 3 systems. I have 2 more systems to connect it. We'll never connect like this generally, but we can try. What if more connection comes across? Let me connect with this system. PC3, command prompt, PC3, desktop, command prompt. Telnet 192.168.10.254, Cisco, enable CCNA. Going back to PC5. So from 20 network 192.168.10. Thing. Cisco, enable CCNA. Let me see how many systems that I connected now. We'll go back to the switch. All the 5 has been connected now. Let me try one more example. I'm going to connect from PC6. Telnet 192.168.10.254. You can see the output call connection refused by remote host. The reason, all the given ports are completely engaged. We don't have a free port to connect it to that device. What I mean by free port, if you look into here, that I configured 0 to 4, which means 5 ports. So first system connector will take a first port, then second, then third, then fourth, then 5. All 5 will be consumed. Keep in mind, people never connect to the same device on a multiple system as a 1 or 2 admin available in the entire network, and it's been pre-planned activity if they do any changes on it. So generally only one connection is going to be happen. Even if it is more connections, the admin will come to know why, who connected more and what is the reason, etc. So, but just to understand what happened if we give more connections. So therefore, generally we allow only 1 or 2 ports to connect it. Like what I said, instead of you giving line VTY04, we may gonna give 01 or 02, something like this one. Okay, so this is somehow going to be connected with the line VTY04, but by using this connection, we cannot give any privileges to anybody. So in order to give any privilege, we need a specific username. For that, what we will do in the switch, same thing, but now anybody can log in without any proper proof because it's not defined to any particular user. So if let's say me and you in a network which you have separate login and I have a separate login. So in order to tackle who did what, the person has to log into any network devices by using their own user ID. Therefore, we have another concept called local database, which means the username and the data, I mean, the username and password will be stored in the same switch or same network devices. Here, until now, we did with just a password, no specific username. So how do we do that? In switch, what you need to do, you need to give a command called username and any username. For example, Ali. Username, password. You can give any password, example test. Okay. Now this device, you can configure multiple username like this in the switch. So if I wanted to log into the switch, I can use with my username. If someone wants to log in with that switch, if really needed, we can assign a username to him. Later on, we can give a specific privilege to them. So this is just a username. And to associate with the VTY port, what we're going to do, line VTY 04. Then we're going to say that instead of we assigning a password here itself, we're going to mention that login local, which means when I try IP address to that device and when allowed through the port number 0, that VTY will look into the what is next, whether they have a password here itself or they need to look into the local database. When it's a command comes, says that any traffic coming to the VTY area, which is in between 0 to 4, look into this. This says that look into the local database. The local database is nothing but when you log in, check the local database. That will go directly into a username and password area. So they're going to be logging directly into a username. Instead of local, we have another option called, you might heard about external database, which is external server, where all the username and password can be defined in the external server. That server, we call it as a radius server or TechAx server, which each company will have their own external authentication server, which this process is called as authentication. Authentication is nothing but to verify the username and password. So the external authentication server, you might heard about ClearPass from Aruba, which is the one of the famous ClearPass, the authentication server. We're going to talk about later, inshallah. So we just need to define a username and password. If you already define a password under the line VTY04, what you can do, go into line VTY04, now password. So the password will be removed. Then you're going to give a login local. We'll try one command here, inshallah. So if you look into do show run, do show you can see that under the line VTY there is a password. And let me see, is there any username defined here? Do show run section username. Whatever you want, you can just type it. Yes, there is a username admin and password is Cisco, which I already configured. If you don't want the username and password, you can anything, you can give a no command, no username admin. So the username is gone. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'll create a username Ali, password Cisco, or what is it, test. If you don't want any username, you don't need to put the full command. You just need to put no username, the username, whatever it is. No username Ali, no username ABC, no username CML, whatever it is. Now I define one username. So let's say in order to check that, do show run username. You can see there is a username. Now let me try with a VTY, what VTY will have. You can see that VTY04 will have the password. So line VTY04. Let me put no password. Now you can see just line VTY04 we have and no password. Instead of that, I'm going to give login local. Here you also have authentication methodology, which we can talk on the later class. Okay, login here, we can give login local. So now if you check, you can see instead of password, you have a login local. So any traffic comes to line VTY04, you'll have a login local. So I said already every port's been consumed, line VTY do show line. All the ports has been consumed. So let me try to clear it. Clear line VTY 2. No, fine. Show line. Show line. Okay, let me disconnect it from here and see how I can. Just go into the switch, exit. Go into the system, giving exit. Go into the systems. Just giving exit. Now let me try with this. Yeah, username. So instead of direct password, it's going to be asking the username, Ali. Password, test, enable, system, or CCNA, show line. Now you can see that instead of direct password, I'm going to give username and password. Okay, so it needs more practice on it. You need to define a username and password. I'll send you small scenarios, inshallah. So this makes more sense that you need to understand about the VTY and the Telnet. SSH we can touch on the next session. So meanwhile, you need to finish the configuration and the practice about. So we have a pending scenario like creating a VLAN, making them trunk, testing the native VLAN, allowing and denying the VLAN, then Telnet configuration. Hope you understood the session. So we had session today, CCNA Day 10 with part 1 and part 2. Part 1, we have talking about native VLAN and allowing and denying VLANs on the trunk port. And part 2, we talking about Telnet configuration with the local database with by default just the password under the VTY port. Okay, inshallah. Hope you enjoy the session. Thank you. See you soon in the next session. Assalamu alaikum.